He's like a brother to me. Wrote this incredible book, Him and the Robot, and we're going to be talking about this.
I think part of it is an internal assessment of why you as an individual do certain things. And then that expands outward as like, why do we do the things we do as a society?
Did you learn something new, or did you heal something, or did you have the opportunity to grow in some aspect?
So I started writing the book, and as I was writing every day, and I was almost done with the first draft, and then my place burns down. So that was certainly a challenge. And I was like, okay, all right. So, let's reassess. Okay, so I'm alive. All right, that's good. So, and I'm healthy, I'm alive, cool. And yes, I lost these things, and this is a big headache, but all right. So I had kind of worked through whatever, let's say, hardships I had encountered, and came to the other side of it feeling pretty happy, and I'm like pretty content. And if you're not asking yourself what are the emotions, what's the psychology driving my behavior, then you're just acting according to your program.
Like a robot.
Like a robot.
Yeah. Well, welcome. This is the first time we're doing this with an audience, actually, which is very, very exciting. First time doing it for a special reason, because who I consider my brother, he's like a brother to me, wrote this incredible book, Him and the Robot, and we're going to be talking about this. And first time doing it in a place
Dreams West in
as
Sea
beautiful
Cliff.
as this, in Sea Cliff. Yeah, your place. Thank you for hosting us here, which is incredible. And at the same time, we're recording an episode of Coffee, Matcha Soul.
With a live audience, right?
Yes. So this is really, really cool. First time doing it. So thank you all for being part of this. I have a lot of questions for you.
I know you do.
I know questions for you. First of all,
this is funny because now I feel like I'm in the hot seat here, and that's not how we've been doing it.
Right.
Usually there's someone else, and they're in the hot
That's
seat.
right.
So this is interesting.
Which is so cool, because I also want to share with you like the concept of the podcast and the reason why we decided to do the podcast. Saro comes home like at least every 2 weeks or something.
Yeah, definitely a few times, like once or twice a month, we get together.
Yes, and we have dinner, we have coffee, and
matcha.
We love coffee, and he loves matcha. So there's always a fight about like what should we drink tonight, and,
which is better, matcha, of course.
Yeah, exactly. But the wonderful thing that we always share is a wonderful, deep conversation, and we really go like very deep as we can go, right? And we talk about different subjects. Like it's funny because even if we try to be superficial at first, we're talking about soccer today, whatever, right? Or we're talking about fashion. We always go and start asking questions and questions and questions, and we go deep into philosophy and history and whatever.
I don't think we even have the superficial conversations anymore. We just dive in.
According to you and I, but if somebody else sees that, from the outside world, it might be a little bit superficial. So
maybe.
But it's always like we always take it like deep, right? Which is great. And the reason why I'm sharing that is because when I read your book, it was like a reflection of those conversations in a way. So, which is incredible. And I want to start by asking you a very specific question. It reminded me of Carl Jung and the Red Book. And it reminded me of Plato's dialogues.
Yeah.
And it's which by the way, those two books have been a huge influence in my life.
Yeah.
And when I read what you did, of course, I've always admired you, but now I go even more because...
Well, you don't have to admire me.
No, but I want to.
Okay.
And no, because you're raising very, very profound questions here. And obviously the way you're doing it, I can see the influence of filmmaking, the way you set it up, creating these two fictional characters, but they have meaning. So the first question I had was, were you influenced by Plato or Carl Jung, or does that resonate
Yeah.
to you?
Yeah. So first, let me say that yes, it's good that you note that our conversations felt like they were in the book because, well, as you know, I credit you and Zair, and I thank you both because yes, I mean we've had wonderful conversations, and also I think what you didn't mention about Coffee, Matcha, and Soul and its connection to the book is that right when we set out to do Coffee, Matcha, and Soul, we wanted to create, and because we're filmmakers and been working on film, we wanted to create meaningful content that would help. Uh, I want to say educate audiences, but could be entertaining, fun, and uplifting, right? Like that's why we set out to do Coffee, Matcha, and Soul. And that was also my intent with the book. I wanted to create something that just got people thinking about why we do the things we do. I think part of it is an internal assessment of why you as an individual do certain things. And then that expands outward as like, why do we do the things we do as a society, right? So I haven't read Carl Jung's The Red Book.
The Red Book.
But of course, I've read Plato many times, and yes, so the idea of the dialogue, it comes from Plato's like Socratic dialogues, right? So for sure, and then and that's amazing that you say it reminded you some aspects of Carl Jung, because how I got to some of the things about, say, why we do the things we do emotionally, what drives us and our behaviors, is through a lot of my own introspection and figuring out why I've done the things I've done throughout the years. I mean, so that's sort of what's in this book is it's a lot of my own discoveries, right? And the purpose is like I'm not Carl Jung, I'm not a psychologist, I'm not an expert. I would be very hesitant to call myself an expert in anything. But I wrote this to be like the start of a journey for people who are just wanting to explore deeper themselves, life, and everything. So it's a starting off point, I think, for people. That was my goal, really, in creating it.
It feels that way because I would say that one of the things that I found as a constant, like a constant equation in those three examples, right? Carl Jung's Red Book, where, by the way, he created a fictional character, Philemon, and he has this philosophical conversations with this character, and he goes deep. I mean, asking if God exists or not, right? And it's kind of the same thing with Plato, right? With the dialogues. But the one thing that remains in those two examples, and it's also here, is the importance of asking questions.
Yeah.
Which is incredible. I mean, like, and what I want to ask you is, here you made an endowment to the robot because the one that's asking questions is the robot.
Yeah.
Which is so interesting.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, I don't know about you guys, but every AI, appliance that I've seen around, they are there to answer our questions, right?
Right.
We need something, we ask Alexa, or we want something, we go and ask ChatGPT. Here is the robot asking the questions, which is so interesting. Why did you decide it that way?
Okay, so the thing about asking questions, you're right. I mean, I think you can't get to understanding without asking questions. And so my belief system is I'm agnostic. And I talk about what that means, like in the context of the book and for myself. And usually when people hear agnostic, what they think is that I'm someone who is undecided and I don't want to take a stance. And so, I'm just easily copping out and saying I'm agnostic. Or they think that someone who's agnostic just doesn't want to think about these really big and hard topics, right? Like, what is there a God? What is God? Like, so they think, again, that you're just taking the easy way out. But for me, being agnostic is not that. Actually, I think it's the hard work of trying to really understand what these things are based on like taking a step back and saying, well, what do we really know? Like what evidence do we really have? What is the actual like knowledge that we have, right? And so asking questions is at the heart of being agnostic for me. And then that's the start of learning, is by opening yourself up to the possibility that there are different sources of information and different ways of looking at things. Because at the end of the day, we all have a very small sliver of knowledge and a small perspective.
Yeah.
But by opening up and trying to learn from each other and gaining more and more knowledge, you'll start to get a bigger picture, a better understanding of the whole, right? And what was the second part? Oh, why the robot?
Why the robot? Yeah.
So then the robot was a tool because one day it just came to me. Like, what if this thing all of a sudden becomes conscious? That's not human, right? And it wakes up, and then something outside of us, observing us, and is trying to ask questions like, well, why do you do the things you do? Oftentimes, the other thing I was thinking about the robot is I was imagining the robot as like a kid. Like if I had a kid, how would I explain the world to a kid? The wonderful thing about children is that they don't know a lot and they're trying to understand and they're very curious. And so they're asked a lot of questions, and sometimes it drives parents crazy, but it's wonderful that they're asking questions, right? Because they're trying to learn. And so I imagine the robot almost like a kid. Yes, it's a tool to look outside of us objectively and to reassess like why we do the things we do in our society as a person, you know, in our daily lives. So that was the purpose of the robot. And then one other thing, which I don't really touch in the book, but the robot is, and you'll probably get into this about consciousness, what is consciousness, what is not. But I do think that if you're not understanding why you as an individual does the things that you do, if you're not asking yourself what are the emotions, what's the psychology driving my behavior, then you're just acting according to your program.
Like a robot.
Like a robot.
Yeah.
So you do need to kind of step back and reassess, like, why do I, you know, why do I keep buying this thing, right?
Yeah.
Why do I need that?
Yeah.
No, but what is driving it? Why do I feel that's going to make me happy? Whatever that is, right? At the end of the day, it's your emotions driving you, most likely. And if you're not aware of that, then you're like, kind of just acting according to a program.
I agree 100%. I remember when I was studying acting, I had a teacher she always said the same thing. You guys have to live in the question. Don't answer the question. Just live there and just, you know, find new things, which I believe is the principle for evolution. You know, as you were saying, if in any field, if a scientist doesn't ask himself new questions, if we take everything for granted, then there is no evolution. Same thing with, you know, if we take any dogmatic system and we just, you know, adopt that as the mere truth, then there is no evolution in anything. So I think that's great. Who's Tim?
Who's Tim? Okay, well, so Tim is if I was to do this life over again, I would have actually gone into science. I still think like when I'm ready to retire from film and whatever, be able to go back to grad school and like try to learn physics. So Tim is like who I would like to be, and I am talking through Tim. So and I talk about this like in the intro, or I don't remember one, but I do make it clear that you know, I didn't go to grad school or I didn't get a PhD in science. I'm just very passionate about science and philosophy and stuff. And but I did go to grad school for film and creative writing and stuff. So I make that clear. But when I talk about things that occur in my life, like that's me talking about my life. So I do draw upon things in my life. So that's what makes this like a semi non-fictional book.
So this is, I know it's, when I read the book, of course, I already know you for years, so I know it's very bibliographical.
Yeah.
Like, it's portions, big portions of your story and your intimacy are in the book.
Yeah.
And then you add a second element, which is you decide to go ahead and talk about controversial topics nowadays. So what was the hardest part, or how did you have moments when you were writing the book that you felt so vulnerable to tell your own story? And then what pushed you through still talking about subjects that might be misinterpreted or taken the wrong way, even though you make the disclaimer that this is just, for people to think and not like you're not giving like an absolute right, what's right or what's wrong.
Yeah. So yeah, those are great questions. So yes, I felt very vulnerable when I set out to write the book. I mean, still, I don't know, but I mean, when I set out to write the book, it was very scary, right? And then I was like, okay, I'm scared to do this. So then I think I'm going the right direction, because in general,
let me stop you right there. Why were you scared?
Well, because I'm very, very private about my life, and I don't want to share intimately things that have happened in my life, but my thought process is I can't explain how I came to some of these ideas without sharing that. So if I'm going to offer, say, some insight, I need to have the context of where that insight came from. So that's why I felt like, okay, I have to share. Not that I want to, but also part of creating this, I've never written a book before. Again, my work's in film. And so it felt scary to do this new endeavor, but I was like, as an artist, I think you kind of need to be scared of the work that you do. So that's why I was like, okay, I think this is actually the right thing. I need to do this. Then, but in terms of talking about these, say, controversial topics, so that was also, I mean, there was a part I was like, well, I could take out these like 5 chapters on these subjects, right? And then I'm sure the book will sell a lot better, right? I thought of that, but but then I was like, but I don't want to do this to make money. Like, this is me like trying to give back. That's another reason I wrote the book. I wanted to help society, and because born here, being American, whatever. I mean, I really do, love my country and stuff, and my fellow citizens. So I want to see if I can help in some way. And these controversial topics that are so, I guess, inflaming people emotionally, right? I wanted to offer like, wait, let's just take a step back and just really think this through, like logically, scientifically, without emotion. You don't have to agree, but this is one way of looking at these topics from a detached place.
So I like that, and I like that throughout the book you're constantly reminding people that these are things that even you can change your mind about, because the more you research, the more scientific evidence you find, the more we as a society evolve, things will change. And that's the whole purpose of us as humanity, that we have the capacity to change and to adapt to the new circumstances that we're living right now. So my question is, and that you hope that, the audience change their point of view in one aspect or the other. And towards the end of the book, you mentioned like maybe in 5 years from now, I will think differently. And when I read this book, I would just probably say, oh no, that was nonsense, or something like
Possibly,
that. So when you talk about how all the process, the process of writing a book, I haven't written a book, but I have written scripts, and every creative process is also like a healing and growing process, like personally. So my question to you, it's 2 questions. Number 1, do you feel that as you immerse in this journey, did you learn something new, or did you heal something, or did you have the opportunity to grow in some aspect? And as this journey is coming to like the end of the pregnancy where you just deliver and now the kid is by itself,
Yeah, it's out
is there
there.
anything that you have changed your mind about what you have written?
Okay, that's great. So I do say also in the intro that, you know, it's important as you're reading this that when I wrote this, I was 45, so a middle-aged man, right? And that this is what I've come to learn up until this point. So, and I say that as an agnostic, you shouldn't just, because of my belief system, I'm asking you to ask questions. So I'm asking you not to read this and just take what I'm saying as truth necessarily. It's really for you to then reassess for yourself if it makes sense for you, and then start on your own journey of like thinking of these topics and thinking about yourself. So in that regard, and what I do know is, yeah, I might change another like 50 years from now. I will be a different person. I'm this person right now who's writing this with the experiences and the knowledge I have, but I think things will change. Is there anything I would change right now? There's something that I came across that maybe my definition of entropy might be a little off. I'm like, oh, I think I need to fix that. But you know, if there's another revision, if I do a revision, I'll fix it. Because I think, again, like as I'm learning about things in science and stuff, like maybe my definition was
Are you
off there.
referring to the definition of entropy that Tim provides?
Yes. It might be off because in the book, I say that, you know, the universe is designed to go towards entropy, and that maybe life can be a way of combating entropy by creating organization, right? And I still believe that, but according to physicists and scientists, they say that no, life creates entropy. But so I might be, so that,
Well,
just the rewording.
That's what they are saying today.
I know,
well.
yes, it might
Because,
change.
yeah, 20 years ago, science, you know, used to say something different. 100 years
Yes,
ago.
it keeps changing. It does,
Yeah.
and that's the other, like as our knowledge keeps growing, you have to change based on the data and facts you have at hand. So what the scientists are saying is that in general, right now, life does create entropy because it breaks things down and takes energy and breaks it down. My point about how in the future, many, many thousands of years ago, maybe we'll be able to fight entropy, like as we're traveling the universe and reigniting stars, and who knows what we can do. I'm very hopeful that like 1,000, 2,000, 5,000 years from now, we can, you know, terraform planets and stuff or whatever. Anyway, so that I would change that. And then what was the other?
If it was a journey of growth and if you learned something or healed something through the process.
No. I would say that when I set out to write the book, I had kind of gone through, I mean, things will always happen. So maybe there'll be something down the road that I'll encounter that I'll have to grow in some way. But at the point of writing the book, I mean, my COVID was a weird time for everyone, but for me, it was actually kind of a good period. So for me during COVID, I'd spent a lot of time doing a lot of introspection. So I had kind of worked through whatever, let's say, hardships I had encountered, and came to the other side of it feeling pretty happy, and, you know, I'm like pretty content. And so, yeah, I don't think the book itself, other than maybe the discipline of writing every day for 8 hours a day or something like that changes you. So that you know, I got another tool of discipline under my belt, you know. So maybe that.
So you created 2 fictional characters to have a dialogue, and you know, through those conversations, as Zair was saying, you're touching on very controversial subjects, such as the existence of God, the definition of God, consciousness. What is consciousness? Is it fundamental or not? But I want to tap into the characters that you created, because I like the relationship that you are suggesting between the robot and Tim, right? What, in your opinion, what's the biggest mistake that Tim is making, and the biggest mistake that the robot is making, and what is the best virtue that Tim has, and the best virtue that the robot has?
The biggest mistake. Wow. Maybe the biggest mistake for Tim is over explaining too much. And for the robot, relying on Tim for answers. And then in terms of virtues, I think Tim intends to get the robot to start figuring these things out on his own, I think is a good intention. And then for the robot, just being inquisitive is a good virtue.
What have you learned from both of them?
Well, what have I learned from both of them? Well, I mean, they're both facets of me, so I don't know that I've learned so much from them. I don't know. I don't have a good answer.
I'm gonna get back to that.
All right,
later.
we'll come back. Fine. Okay. I'll think about it as
Here's
we're
the
going.
thing that I really think that it's worth sharing, because you know, a lot of people may see the book, which is great, right? But they don't know all the decision making that you had to go through to get this done. Which you know, when I told you that I admire you, I really mean it, but not just admire your talent, but the courage you have to say, listen, my life is going in this direction. Now I want to drop this thing and I want to focus on creating this, because this has meaning.
Yeah.
You know, so can you share a little bit more about that, as much as you want to share? But like, what were the challenges in your life that you even like the big time decisions that you have to make to get this done?
Well, so I started writing the book actually 3 years ago. When I started, I wanted to write a book about agnosticism because of Roe versus Wade being overturned. When that happened, that was so disheartening to me, because the gravity of that event is that, you know, it's only the second time in our country's history that the Supreme Court overturned a right that citizens had in this country. So they took that right away. Yes, they deferred it back to the states, but states are taking it away from women. And so that's shocking to me. And also what was so shocking to me is that we know that at least 3, if not more, of our judges on the Supreme Court are Christian conservatives or fundamentalists, really. They're very Christian, and they believe, according to their religion, that, you know, God says there's no abortion. And so their overturning of Roe came partly from their belief system, right? And so I wanted to write a book about agnosticism because, well, one, I don't think our Supreme Court justices should be making decisions based on their religious beliefs. It should be more pragmatical. And it's like, well, how many lives are we affecting by this choice, right? Like, by taking this away, how many women may end up getting hurt or dying as a result of this choice, right? Like, we should be thinking in those terms. And we should be thinking about in the terms of like, well, what is a life, right? When does a life happen? Is it at conception? Is it when a fetus is conscious? Like, really think this through in a more like scientific, logical way. Because I think, of course, we all agree that killing is wrong. And so like aborting a baby could be wrong, but is it a human at, 4 weeks? Like, no, it's a group of cells. Like, yes, it's alive, but it's still not a person that's conscious and sentient that could feel things, right? So there's a way to think about this more complex because these are very complex issues. So that was what set me off, and I wanted to write a book on agnosticism. And then I got the idea, and when I was writing it, it was very dry. It was like very theoretical. It was about agnosticism, and it was totally different. And then I got the idea of Tim and robot, and this robot coming alive and asking the questions, and that felt more fun and playful, and that's why I did it. Now, in terms of some of the challenges I faced when writing the book, well, one crazy thing that happened was, so I used to work full-time for JP Morgan Chase as a cinematographer, and I decided to leave. I was there for like 7 years, and I decided to leave to write the book because I really was set on doing this. So I started writing the book, and it was about a month after leaving JP Morgan that as I was writing every day, and I was almost done with the first draft, and then my place burns down. I had a fire, the whole place burns down. So that was certainly a challenge. And I was like, okay, all right. So, let's reassess. Okay. So I'm alive. All right. That's good. So, and I'm healthy. I'm alive. Cool. And yes, I lost these things and this is a big headache, but all right. So it was certainly hard to get back to the book while dealing with the things with the fire and stuff. And yeah, so that was a challenge to not allow, let's say, that big event to affect me, whether emotionally or whatever, so that I couldn't complete this. I mean, sure, it affected me emotionally, but like I allowed myself a couple of weeks to be in that state of, say, discomfort or pain or whatever, sadness, whatever, and then I started reassessing and being like, look, okay, I'll get through this. Life carries on, and this isn't that bad. It could have always been worse, right? So yeah, that was a challenge doing it, and yeah, I would say that was the biggest one that I could think of.
And looking in retrospect, this is going to be a crazy question, all right?
Okay.
But do you feel that in a way, all those things that you went through, because you were facing big challenges. I mean, you say it like that right now, but I remember like being with you, doing projects and whatever, and seeing how many difficulties you had and obstructions you had to jump, right? Like you decided to just leave your job, which was pretty steady and whatever, then the house.
Yeah.
You were working at a coffee shop, writing, right? So, and you were facing some other health issues as well and everything. Yeah. So, looking back in retrospect, do you feel that in a way made you pour some of that information that you had in your mind into the book? When you read the book, is it reflected in there?
So what's reflected in there is some of the other hardships I faced, let's say in my 30s and early 40s, let's say health related and also personal things. And so when you go through hardships, I mean, as long as you come out the other end of it whole, like you're still alive, you didn't, get very injured, you can take something positive away from it. Though it's in those moments where you can grow and, let's say, develop grit, right? It's and part of what, like, one thing I didn't talk about this so much in the book, but one thing I was thinking about, you've heard of Stoicism, right?
Yeah.
With the meditations and all that. And Stoics talk about how your frame of thought affects your emotions. Totally true, right? But what they don't really get into is like, how do you start developing the ability to like regulate your frame of thought, right? Like they don't really talk about what are the things you can do to start. Because in the moment, if you haven't like developed a skill set, if you haven't developed yourself, or like a muscle, almost like working out, right? But if you haven't had experiences that have allowed you to put these things in practice, you're not going to be able to do it the first time it comes around. Like with anything, you're not. So how your emotional disposition is towards something, you're not going to be able to control that if you haven't had practice throughout your life. So prior to the fire and all that, I had pretty good practice. So it didn't affect me as much as, let's say, if I was in my 20s, it would have affected me a lot more. So no, by the time I was writing the book, I was in a pretty good place to deal with hardships.
So the reason why I was asking about mistakes on the robot and Tim as well, and virtues as well, is because something that I this is a personal opinion, but I believe that makes a big difference between us humans and any robot is the fact that, and it's also connected to the idea of entropy, is the fact that we as the human experience, we make mistakes all the time. And we are designing an artificial intelligence in whatever facet to be perfect, right? Like and it makes sense. I mean, you want any AI system to be as perfect as it could be, right? To avoid mistakes, right?
Sure.
So it's interesting that part of the humanization of any entity, artificial or not, has to do with entropy, has to do with the fact that we make mistakes, we face chaos, we face, even when we plan everything the way you were planning, I'm going to quit my job, I'm going to focus in the book and whatever, boom.
Yeah.
Life happens. You have life happening, right? And then I remember, if I can bring that up,
bring it up.
I remember, during those days, I remember a conversation you and I had. Zair was wrong, and you were asking a lot of questions. I don't understand why this is happening. I want to know why. What? Just like the robot, right? So it's so interesting to see the connections from the outside, like. But I wanted to ask you if you thought about all those moments, or if looking in retrospect, you see that here as well, and especially particularly like the idea of making mistakes as well, or not having all the answers.
Well, we're gonna make mistakes, right? Like we're humans, so we're gonna make mistakes, and we don't have all the answers yet. And I imagine if there was some sort of sentient robot, it too will make mistakes because it won't have all the answers. I don't know if we'll ever get to a time or a place where we have all the answers. I don't know. I mean, what is that has all the answers? I mean, that would be God then at that point, right? Like, what knows everything? So no, we're going to make mistakes. But I think it's important to also know that. Like, you need to recognize that you're going to make mistakes, so that you can, because if you think you have all the answers, then you're kind of blinded to reality, I think, and you're not going to grow anymore. And there's no reason to keep exploring. I mean, so yeah, I mean.
So if there is only one thing that the audience should take away from your book, what would that be? And what would you say right now to entice that audience to go get your book and read it?
Well, I would say that I hope they enjoy it. One, that's most important, because I think learning should be fun. So that's why I try to make it as playful as possible. So one is like, have fun with it, but two, start really reassessing the things you think in your own life and about yourself, and why we as a society do the things we do, and why, I think so. The key takeaway is, I hope this starts you on your own journey of discovery. That would be key takeaway.
Nice.
I gotta say that one of the things that, and I have to thank you for that. One of the things that the book created in me was the necessity to keep asking questions
Oh, good.
constantly and not taking anything for granted, because even Tim doesn't have all the answers.
No. Yeah.
Which is great.
Yeah.
You know, and that's what I meant when I was talking about the mistake factor. You know, like the moment we believe that we have all the answers, in my opinion, that moment we're setting ourselves to stop growing.
Yeah, totally.
Because we are just nothing in this universe is fixed.
Yeah, that's
We're
right.
always learning.
That's right. Yeah, totally. And more important, you're fooling yourself into thinking you know the answers, and you're not exploring anymore. You're not learning anymore.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Good. Shall we open it?
Sure. Yeah. If there's
to
any
the
questions,
audience?
what we're doing. Yeah. If anyone has any questions, we could.
Or comments. They don't have to be questions. Yeah.
Not so much a question, but knowing Saro as long as I've had, and also having been with him through his current trials while he was writing the book. While he was in the middle of it, I read some of his writings, which was on his blog, and it really opened my eyes to really seeing what I knew of him, and actually got to know him better from those writings, because I got to see the reasons why he did things. And I haven't read the book yet, but I will. and I want to see if all the experiences that you've had and the things that I have in common with you, I see it in you, you know, and how you guys were just conversing just now. All the things I have in common with him, I see it in his book and your conversation. And
well, because we have very good conversations like this also.
Yes, indeed. And his problem solving skills all stem from stuff like this, and philosophically as well as physically. And I just find it amazing, you know, that he exposed himself and all the problems that he has had to deal with during the course of his life.
Yeah.
You know, these challenges, and you know what me and him have in common is learning how to deal and get through these challenges, whether it be physical or health wise or whatnot.
Yeah.
So I see that.
Yeah, what was interesting was I've known Saro, I think, for 24 years. And I never knew, we've never had it. So when he was writing this book, I remember saying, I said, holy shit, I didn't know you were agnostic. Because the conversation never happened because, you know, I was raised Roman Catholic. So I turned my kind of gaze towards agnosticism during confirmation in 7th grade. So I kind of found my journey early on, but he and I never had that conversation.
Wow.
It's just not something that I would like a friend of, you know, it just wouldn't come up. It wasn't like, hey man, how's your day going? Oh, by the way, I'm agnostic, you know. Like, so it was interesting to see the book, you know, because he kept telling me he was writing this book and I would be with him at times while he was writing it. And then one day, you know, he shows me the cover and I guess, and you know, unfortunately, like an asshole, I finally read it. And I was like, wait, this is about agnosticism? And then he was like, yeah. And I was like, you know I'm agnostic, right? And then it was this whole, it was bizarre and embarrassing at the same time for me to be like, you know, I'd later see my mother and she'd be like, my parents be like, how's Saro doing? I'm like, Mom, did you know Saro's agnostic? And I'm like, what the fuck? And then my parents are like, you're agnostic? And I'm like, oh, shit. Yeah, and so it opened, you know, so it was interesting. Yeah, because, you know, it's just not something that, because at the time, you know, like my significant other and I, she was also agnostic, but like, again, it's not something I opened up with when I met her or like, you know, it's certainly not, you know, like, hey, what are you doing on Friday? You know, so, but it was interesting. And then he was putting it into the book and then taking me through it. So I guess my question for the audience is at what age or when did you turn kind of realize that you weren't kind of like, you know, orthodox and
yeah. Well, so I was born I'm Armenian by descent, so Christian Orthodox is what I grew up with, and I went to Catholic school, and as like yourself, and Armenian school. So the church was very present in my life growing up. And we just talked about the subject matter. I won't bring it up here, but right, in one of our recent podcasts, we talked about it a little bit and how it's influenced on me. So it certainly influenced me. I don't know. I guess as I was getting into my 20s, oh yeah, right. So when I was 19, 20, and that's when I met you in Kung Fu, and part of what spurred that on was I grew up from the age of 12 actually having arthritis, psoriasis, and then at 19 it turned into Crohn's. And so dealing with those health issues and not being able to get help anywhere really, because the medical community at the time didn't really have much to offer, and God wasn't helping me. And so I was like, oh wow, I'm really on my own to figure this out.
Right.
So I started feeling that at like 16, like I need to figure this out.
Okay.
But by 19, 20, that's when I then started turning to Eastern arts and philosophy, and that's how I got into Kung Fu, and started studying Buddhism quite a bit. And by the time you met me, I was like kind of in monk mode, right? Yeah.
Do you still have a respect or like an understanding for the teachings of religion? Do you look upon it just sort of different?
So right, I talk about that. So, and I'm not at all suggesting we throw everything out, just maybe the things that don't make sense today, right? But like, let's say Christianity, and I talk about that quite a bit. Like, I actually really love a lot of what Jesus was preaching and talking about. And there's also a theory that Jesus and Buddha may have met or something, and because they were around the same time,
like
right?
The Avengers, yeah.
Well, maybe. Well, yeah, they were for their time. Well, they were trying to do right. Jesus at the very core was trying to do good work, right? Like he just wanted to help humanity, and that's beautiful. But I don't need Jesus to have been resurrected. I don't need the magic.
Right.
So that's the part where I'm like, oh well, I don't know. It's kind of like how I don't believe in Santa Claus anymore. I kind of don't believe like these miracles that occurred, but I don't need the miracles. I like the messaging, like do unto others as you do unto yourself, or how he would try to help the people sick like lepers and whatever. I mean, that's beautiful. Like that we should carry 2,000 years. That still makes sense today. Right. So yeah, I wouldn't say all of Christianity or all of any religion is bad. That's not being like practical or realistic either, because I think throughout history people have figured things out. So we just need to take the things that they figured out and make sense and carry that forward. And then some of the other things, let's say the myth and the fables and stuff, we don't need to hold on to that and make room for science and try to assess things for what they really are. So that's how I balance it.
Like also when you hear about agnosticism, like you are not just you're also thinking that it's somebody who does not believe in God or anything spiritual, and you are a very spiritual person. And we have had conversations where we have maybe agreed on, like even in the book, is like if God exists, maybe his own, and I love this definition in the book, is like his own purpose for humanity is that they reach God level
of God, maybe.
Level of God, right?
Yeah,
and then
maybe.
that if we go back, if we bring religion into that, it's not that far away from that. Like if we bring Christianity, when you have the Trinity, and when you're like, you have God inside you, like you, therefore you're God, because you're one with the whole, right?
Right.
So it's just like an evolved concept of, as you say, but it's not denying that there is a spiritual world that we might tap into, that science right now doesn't have an answer for that, because we have talked about it, and there's space for that. So there's space for the magic as well, in the making of
so right, in terms of let's say the spirituality part, right? So I say I'm a spiritual agnostic, right? So I'm not saying, So it's true when people think of agnostic, they think atheist. I'm not atheist, right?
Yeah.
Like atheist to me is also kind of an extreme stance because they also have no evidence that there isn't a God. So they're just claiming no God without any evidence also.
Yeah.
So that's the problem with atheism. Like you have to be open to what the possibilities are. And the spirituality part, well, so I try to tie it back to science. And what I say is like my definition of spirituality is like, what is it other than trying to be the best version of yourself, right? And so I think that's the pursuit of spirituality. And so being the best version of yourself, you're developing yourself physically, mentally, morally, ethically, right? So all those facets makes your persona, your soul, your spirit, like all that combines to make who you are. And so the development of yourself spiritually is the pursuit of being the best person possible. And then in terms of the potential for there being God, well, I mean, even science has, right? Like the magic is always the limit of what science understands, right? Neil deGrasse Tyson says that, and I think it's so brilliant. And that limit keeps getting moved back as we keep making new discoveries. But there'll probably be a point where we'll never be able to answer like how we got here, how did the universe got here, and maybe that's where God is, maybe that's where God resides, or maybe there's something underlying. Maybe God is like exists on the quantum, like a quantum level, and so it is in all of us, in everything. Maybe that makes sense to me as a possibility. So I'm open to those possibilities.
That's also a good fable to think. So it's like, you know what I mean?
Yeah, it could, but yeah. So then
I'm not against it. On the contrary, I'm just saying, like, some fables are, good to believe in, right?
Yeah, I guess you need something to believe in. Yes, but right. I don't know. I'd be careful about magic, though. I would.
But also, I mean,
science.
that will take us to a different place, because what is magic? I mean, what is that thing that we describe as magic?
Well, okay, you know what to me is magical? I just think life is incredibly magical. Like just the fact that we exist, that we're conscious, that we're in this room, that we're able to have this conversation. Like to me, the fact that I can touch and feel, I mean, this comes back to meditation, but even breathing, like when I'm in the moment and I'm experiencing, like it's really magical that I'm made up of trillions, I don't know, 30 trillions of cells.
Right.
And all those cells come together to give me this experience and the ability to be present in the moment. Yeah. Like that's pretty magical.
Yeah.
And so how we got here through time, evolution, we started, I don't know how many millions of years ago, 500 million or maybe 3 million years ago, the first cells formed on Earth. And then from those cells, it kept evolving until we're here now. That's pretty magical. So that's magic to me.
No, and we have had this conversation. Like I would never forget the moment, like a year ago, no, 2 years ago, for the first time, we had the opportunity to bring my Cuban mother from Cuba, out of Cuba, to visit Mexico, right? And we were spending some time with her, and the moment she saw, I believe it was me or Zair, saying, "Hey Alexa, play music," she was like, "What? What is that?" That's magic for her. That was like coming from a magical world.
Yeah.
So,
right.
The reason why I'm asking this question is because there are certain things that we couldn't understand, or if you show whatever internet is doing nowadays, or new appliances is doing nowadays to an indigenous community in the Amazons,
right?
For them, that's probably magic.
Yeah.
Because we cannot understand or comprehend in our daily basis life. Yeah. But what is magic? I mean, there's Dean Radin. I don't know if you have read his book on and he's a man of science. His book is called Real Magic, and it's like the scientific explanation for those phenomena that we call magic.
Yeah, I mean, you have to imagine that 3,000 years ago, we knew a lot less. And so anything would be magical, right?
Yeah.
And I mean, that's where the first gods came from. The ideas of the first gods was like, how does the sun move? left to right. Well, there's a god that moves the sun, and then you know what's causing the lightning. Well, that's a lightning god.
Yeah.
You know, the first answer to not understanding is always like a god's doing it. So, and I talk about this in the book, like, you know, if we now today with our technology go back 3,000 years ago, I'm sure people would say we're gods, right? So it doesn't take a lot to be magical, but just I think it's important to know that as we're learning more about the universe and how it works, that frontier of what's science and what's magic, it keeps moving.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. Well, I remember, you know, Einstein used to call entanglement something that is explained today the spooky phenomenon.
Oh, yeah.
And now it's proved that, you know, entanglement is real.
Yeah.
And it's not magic.
Yeah. Right. When Einstein's like, what is this? This is crazy. Like, how can these two particles be connected across the universe?
Yeah.
Because, right, the changes occur instantaneously faster than the speed of light. So, like, that shouldn't happen according to the knowledge we had. But now we know it does. We still don't understand why, but we know it does.
Any other questions or comments?
I was just thinking, if you were going to write a sequel, what would be their next adventure or lesson?
Oh, okay. You know, I don't know that I would write a sequel, but I think what I'd like to do is create like a YouTube series where I animate them, and then that would be a little bit like smaller little chapters where they go around and robots see something that we're doing that's kind of weird, and he's like, well, why are you all online? You know, what's that line for? You know, like, why are you online? Or, you know, so that might be something I do. And maybe I would do like revisions as I learn more about science, where it's things change or something. Yeah. Yeah.
Awesome. I think the YouTube is a great idea.
Yeah. Make it fun. And
yeah. Absolutely.
So my grandmother would say to me, you know, like, what is your definition of this? And you and I had talked about this, but I think the way that we came to an understanding of, you know, being kind of, the way I would explain it is that I believe in something. I don't know that I'm meant to understand that thing, but I don't believe in what man says about that thing.
Right.
And so my church at the time found that to be highly offensive. When I was asked to leave, they tried to expel me, and they did not want to let me.
So can you repeat that again? I mean, because that's a powerful statement. So you believe in something, but you don't believe what
that I'm necessarily meant to understand that thing. And should it reveal itself to me, I don't feel that I'm entitled to know that. But I'll try my best to kind of.
Right.
And so, but I do not believe in what man says about that thing. So, you know, and I go to church when, you know, not often, but Christmas or whatever, fall asleep. But my point is, like, I understand the construct of it and I respect it. The older I get, I actually understand why my grandmother felt such a connection to it when she had passed. Maybe 200 women showed up from the church to do the entire, it was beautiful because I thought, wow, how beautiful that was. If she saw that would have just lit her up, you know, because hundreds of people showed up, and this goes on and it's a wonderful thing to watch. And there was power in that, you know. And so, and again, I still wrestle with it to this day because I hear what you're saying. You know, I want to believe. I want to allow that to be open to.
I was just about to say that because, and I want to ask you what you think about this. But do you believe that it's inherent, like it's an inherent gift of humanity to believe? Do you think that we need to believe in something
bigger than, because we believe in a lot of things, but you mean something bigger than human, like,
and not
humankind?
even necessarily. I mean, do we have, is that a need that we have, like the need of believe in something? I think it is. I mean, in my opinion, but
I do. I find that I'm most content in my life when I'm in service of something other than myself. So, like, I always, when I was a kid, I read something that was on the back of a milk carton, and next to the missing child. You know, and growing up in the '80s, there were missing kids, and it said the purpose of life is a life of purpose, and that
Yeah.
stuck with me forever.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I realize the older I get that when I do come, and Saro and I talked about this, like when I choose a career that is predominantly kind of self-beneficial in terms of financial gain or whatever, it's great in the moment, but it's quite hollow at the end of that journey. And if I'm not in service of something other than myself, it feels quite, it's just, it almost feels like it's the opposite of what I should be doing. So yeah, I do believe that belief in a sense is like purpose built. So we should feel purposeful.
It's great. And I believe that that's the best way to wrap it up. Like saying, you know, at least is my opinion. I think that you're following your purpose by doing this. And, and thank you for doing it.
Thank you. Thank you. Oh, thanks. Thank you. Thanks, everyone. Thanks for coming out.